Testing. And you can always just do one ear off if you want.
That's cool.
Okay.
It's fine like that because I can hear you anyway. So.
Perfect. All right, so we're gonna try something new because this box is brand new to me. So I'm gonna give us a countdown, intro music. I'll welcome you, and then we'll dive into it.
Sounds good.
All right, cool.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight on the show, I have Max Griman. Griman. Max was on the Navy Special Forces with the Israel Defense Forces. Then he was in Africa for a little bit as a maritime security project manager. He is now here in Austin, Texas as a co-founder, a CEO, a business partner, a husband. We talked on the phone a little bit. We've been talking here a little bit. I'm so excited to dive into your story and just see what you have to say this morning. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
And welcome to David's Saturday Night Sit Back.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You have a great place here, and I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, man. So I grew up in the States. You grew up in, where did you say you were born? It's not Israel.
I was born in Ukraine.
Okay.
And at the age of 3, my family decided to move. My mom actually decided to move to Israel. So we lived in the south of Israel, in a city that's called Be'er-Sheva. And not the best place to grow up in, but it's better now.
Do you have many memories of Ukraine? I was going to say, I don't remember anything before I was 3 years old.
Not at all. Actually, I have one memory which is pretty insane, and my mom confirmed it. Just something silly of my grandfather making crabs, and I actually remember them kind of crawling on the floor. And I don't know how that happened, but that's the only thing that I remember. And I actually remember the color of the carpet and how the living room looked. That's something crazy. But except that, nothing. I was too young.
Crabs crawling on the floor. What growing up in Israel, so when I think of my childhood, I'm not even sure how to frame this question, but growing up in the US, you know, we grew up in a relatively suburban neighborhood, had friends, went to school. Was there anything that you think, from what you've observed of US culture versus Israel culture, was there anything unique about growing up in Israel?
You know, the one thing that is actually similar in one way is that both places are kind of like a melting pot. But in Israel, it's felt much more than here. You have so many cultures, and we have not too many people, right? When I grew up, we had about 6 million people in Israel. Right now, we have about 9, and you have so many different cultures, different traditions. Everything is so colorful. Everything is. I mean, you can see different things everywhere you go. So, in terms of different, it is very different. But I think that you kind of get the same feeling here because you also have a collection of different people and cultures here.
What is, to the best of your memory, what's one of your favorite childhood memories?
Childhood memories. You know, actually, it's a bit unfortunate to say, but I don't have many of them. I have a lot of pretty bad ones as a kid. But if I have to pick one, when I grew up, we didn't have much at all. And I remember one evening that was so nice. My mom came home from work, and we didn't have nothing at home. Like, we had only one couch, and we had this small heater, and it was raining outside, super cold. So she set us on this couch together with her, next to this heater, me and my brother and her, and we kind of like getting warmed. And we watch people outside running in the rain and kind of get wet, and we were so happy that we have this warm place. And for me, it's just something that I remember. I appreciate it until this day that I got the chance to have this when I was a kid, because many people were very poor back then. Many people came from Ukraine, from Russia, basically from the Soviet Union to Israel in the 90s, and it was just rough time. So I appreciate having what I had.
Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
I grew up with one brother.
Okay.
And then my mom got remarried. My actual biological father, he stayed in Ukraine. I'm not really in contact with him. And my mom got remarried. So now I have another I have another brother and sister, and another small sister. So 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that most of your memories growing up were bad memories, unfortunately. Yeah. Is there any one of those in particular that stand out to you that you would care to share with us?
I remember always being afraid. Always being afraid. Like it was pretty rough growing up in back then it wasn't like today. You were always outside. There was no phones, no internet, nothing like that. You're always outside playing and and you were always afraid because there was a lot of racism back then. I was the Russian kid. It doesn't matter if you're from Ukraine, from Moldova, from Belarus, or from Russia. They will always call you a Russian.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of racism towards Russians. And I just remember always being picked at, always being kind of harassed and getting into fights. So I just constantly had this fear in me everywhere I went to. It just went for years and years.
Yeah. Me and another guest were just talking about this. So he was picked on in high school for being fat. I was picked on in high school, and we were discussing, and neither of us had an answer. So I'm curious now, learning this about you, what your thoughts are. If a teenager or a child happens to hear this, what is the solution to that? And we were even joking around, like, do you punch that kid in the face? Do you do nothing? Looking back on it, how do you think you responded to that, the people making fun of you or being racist towards you? And now that you've grown up and it's been several years, do you think you would have done anything differently if you could go back and speak to 13-year-old Max for 5 minutes? Would you give him any advice about how to deal with that bullying?
It's a very interesting question. What happened to me, I became very aggressive. Very aggressive. Like, I wanted to be that guy that everyone are afraid of. Everyone knows that they just know that you shouldn't try this guy. And to be honest, I think that it was the right way to handle that back then, because you still don't have enough understanding of of life or how to get out of these situations, and I just did what I had to do. In hindsight, probably, I think it's right for most situations in life. Just kind of be the smart guy, walk away. But I cannot judge anyone who is getting aggressive and just doing what he needs to do to protect himself. So I think if that happens to people today, you kind of need to know the limit, right?
Yeah.
If for the most part, I would say just walk away, and then handle with this later when you are not angry anymore, when you are not in this situation, because it's very hard to make good decisions when you are in a difficult situation, especially when you're young. But there has to be a limit that you need to put to yourself, like, this is my limit, and if it gets there, I just have to protect myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
It's funny, man, because in my 20s, as I thought back about when I was growing up, I had these thoughts that I wish I punched that guy. I wish I beat the shit out of him. And even if the fight turned around and he ended up kicking my ass, I had these moments of just like, man, younger David was such a little pussy, like why did I never stand up for myself? Why did I never say something back? Why did I not hurl the insult back? I always just sort of took it, soaked it in, went home, thought of myself as like a piece of shit. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, at 35, like I don't think that's I don't have those thoughts anymore. I don't wish that as I picture the different guys in my head that made fun of me, I no longer think that the solution would have been to throw the first punch, or technically the second punch. You know, they threw the first verbal punch, me throw the first physical punch. But I guess I'm curious what your thoughts are around that. You know, those thoughts I had in my 20s of the solution was to attempt to kick that guy's ass, and if he kicked mine back, like it would have grown. It would have turned me into a man. Was sort of the thoughts that I had. What's your reaction to this as I'm saying this out loud?
Yeah, I think that's. Can I say bad words here? I don't.
Yes.
So I think that's bullshit, because at the end of the day, those feelings of being a man because I'm throwing the first punch, because I'm taking care because I'm taking care of business, let's say, it's not the right definition of what a man is. But to take it back to your last question, I was never the one to throw the first punch. Never in my life, never. I was always the guy that was kind of trying to make the situation better, to try to resolve things. But at a certain point, you just have to do it. You have to do it, and you have to protect yourself. So I think that if you have the strength to walk away, definitely do it. Definitely do it. You know, I trained in MMA, and one of the first things that I learned from my coach was, he told us, when somebody comes to you with a knife, what do you do? So he has different people, and then, I do this technique, I do that technique, and, after some time, he just tells you, you're all wrong. What you do, you turn around and you run as fast as you can. Like, if you can avoid a conflict that can harm you, so just do it, right? Deal with that later. But that's my thought. I don't think that you should be the bully. I don't think that you should be the one to throw the first punch. But at the same time, if someone is speaking at you, you cannot just take it, because at the end of the day, what happens when you do it for too long, you get very angry inside. You have a lot of bad emotions, and it will affect you in some way in your life later. So when I will have kids, I don't have any kids now, but when I will have kids, I will teach them that if someone is bullying them, they have to take care of themselves, and they have to protect themselves. And I will also teach them how to do that.
So you're not going to be the parent that says, go out and punch that kid in the face.
Go and punch him just like that? No. But if he comes to you and, he says something wrong, or he's... even not says, when he's threatening to harm you physically, then that's the sign, right? And if you can avoid it, okay. But if you cannot, just go for it, full power. And you have to know how to protect yourself. So I will be the father that teaches the kids, his children, how to protect themselves when they need it.
There you go. Do you recall how old you were when you decided to join the military?
Yeah, I was about 13 years old when I already knew that I want to be a combat soldier. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I knew that I wanted to be a combat soldier. I don't remember exactly why, because it's not that I have a history in my family of people from the military, but I always kind of liked the fact of being in a strong position, being able to protect other people. That's what I mean about it. And I was also very grateful for the opportunity to live in Israel. And I felt very deeply connected to the country, although I was very young. But as I got closer to the age where you're going to the military, it just became stronger and stronger. So I wanted to protect the family, and also another thing we will probably get to that. But growing up in Israel, we had a lot of terrorism. We had a lot of different operations and hard times. So I had a lot of experiences that kind of made me want to be the person that is out there, on the front line and helping Israel. And I'm very glad that I had the chance to eventually do it. How
old were you when you started fighting with the MMA?
I was 11.
Oh, super young.
Yeah, 11 years old.
What did that look like? Was it a training facility or a gym or yeah?
It was a gym, and I loved it. I started with sports very, very early. At the age of 4, my grandpa sent me to judo. I was there for about a year or something like that. Then we moved to a different to a different location, so I had to, we had to leave judo. But I tried different sports like basketball, volleyball, soccer, and eventually I got to MMA and I stayed there.
There you go. What do you think it was about the MMA that you liked more than the volleyball or the other sports that you tried?
I think that's ultimately the best martial arts that you can do, because I felt that it gave me real confidence that I can protect myself, and back then I really needed it. I needed it outside, and I also needed it at home. Because that's actually the reason I started with MMA, is because I got beat by my brother all the time at home. So I decided to just do something about it and go and train. And I gave him a promise that until I will be his age, back then I didn't understand that I will never be his age, but I told him, when I will be your age, I will kick your ass, And I just, it gave me all the tools that I need to protect myself and also to succeed in life.
Are you still in contact with your brother?
Yeah.
Where does he live?
We're very good friends. Right now he's in Thailand.
Okay.
He likes to travel. He has his wife, and they have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, and they just travel with her and kind of working remotely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they travel all over.
So I now shave my own head, but when I first started balding and my hair started thinning, I had a barber do it because I was afraid that I would cut myself and I would do more harm than good. And he ended up going to Thailand for a vacation. He went I think it was for New Year's Eve, and he was going to be there for 2 weeks, and he loved it there so much, he ended up moving there. He ended up getting his, I think it's a teaching passport, something that you need to have, in order to establish residency. And he ended up moving there, and as a result of that, I now shave my own head, so... Man, just one of those random stories of someone that went, how many people go on a vacation somewhere and love it so much that they say, I'm going to uproot my life and now live there instead, and haven't seen them since.
I saw so many videos and pictures of Thailand. I haven't been there, unfortunately, but it looks amazing. It looks amazing, and the cultures looks amazing, and the beautiful places. So I definitely can understand someone who stays there.
Yeah. So you were born in Europe, moved to Israel, you spent some time in Africa, you're now in Austin. As you think, and maybe there's even some other locations I don't know about, if you could live anywhere, or if you have maybe a fond memory of somewhere, like, where is the best place to live? Because you've seen so much.
Yeah, I lived in a few places, and for me, it would be Europe.
Okay.
I love Europe. I lived in Lithuania for something like 4 or 5 years. My wife, my beautiful wife, she's studying general medicine there to become a doctor, and I lived there with her for a few years, and I just had so much chaos in my life that I'm trying to. I like to be in a quiet place. I like to be in a peaceful place. In Israel, growing up, it wasn't anything like that. And, in the military as well. And then in Africa, it was like always kind of like chaos mode. So don't get me wrong. I like chaos. I thrive in chaos, and it brings the best out of me. But at the same time, I love my peace. I love being quiet. I love kind of seeing peaceful people around me. And in Europe, you really get that feeling. Also, the weather is great for me, right? I know that when people say that the weather is great, it's usually warm. But growing up in Israel, I don't like the warm weather too much, so I prefer the cold one.
How long have you been in Austin?
Now it's 5 or 6 months on and off.
So you and me are both about to experience our first Austin summer.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it gets very hot, very humid. I don't know if you've heard, lots of mosquitoes, and I'm a little...
Like Israel. You just in Israel right now, and it's the same thing. So it's funny that eventually I ended up in the same place and the same climate. Yeah, but long term, I believe Europe, that's the place for me.
There you go. We both have been skydiving. I went my very first time, I think I was 22, 23, and I have a friend who's, her birthday, my birthday is July 30th, hers is August 8th or 9th, and she saw a Groupon for a discount on skydiving, and she texted me and said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said, sure. my experience was that it was the biggest adrenaline rush I ever had, but also the most peaceful I've ever been in my life. There is something about, you jumped out of, well, let me back up a little bit. My tandem diver said, we're going to walk to the door and I'm going to lean you forward a little bit and say 1, and then we'll lean back, lean you forward a little bit and say 2, and then lean back, and then on the 3rd, we'll jump out. He lied. They're all liars. Hey, let me back up even more. When we got to the hangar and we signed the liability waiver, the receptionist or whatever you would call her said, all right, go to station 7, and that's going to be your tandem diver that you're going to jump out of the plane with. So as I'm walking to station 7, he's taking a hit out of a giant bong. And I'm thinking, I didn't have a lot of experience with weed growing up. We were a very conservative family. I never drank until I was 21. I think my first time smoking weed, I was 24, 25. So here I am, a little 20-year-old, thinking like drugs are terrible and they're going to kill you if you take them, right? I see this guy taking a hit out of a bong. I'm like, that's who I'm about to jump out of a plane with. And we did. So we jump out of the plane. He says 1. We get to the door. He says 1. We jump out. We're out of the plane before I even realized what was going on. And at first I was terrified, big adrenaline rush. But as soon as he pulled the chute and we were sort of floating towards ground, it's like every problem, anything I was anxious or stressed out about disappeared. And I sort of had this 10 minutes where it was just me and planet Earth. And I never have felt more peaceful in my life. For your skydiving experience, I was curious if it was with the military or just on your own, and if you had any of those same emotions when you jumped out of a plane.
Oh man, I had these emotions many times, and it never fails. Like you feel that all the time. Maybe when you get to, let's say, 30 or 40 jumps, then you get used to it, but then you actually start to enjoy it even more, because you're able to have fun with it. It's not only all right, like I'm about to die, and
yep.
Yeah, but I jumped also in the military and also on my own. So I have now, I think, some like 80 skydives, something
80?
like that. Yeah.
Holy cow. So you've jumped on your own.
Yeah. I made so first I jumped once tandem when I think I was about 18 years old. Then in the military I made the course. And I think I jumped 4 or 5 times, and one of the jumps was into the water actually, which we're one of the only units that is doing that, which is pretty cool, to land at sea. And after that, I made the course in the Czech Republic. I flew there with 2 of my friends. We did the course together, and since then I'm on my own.
Your very first time jumping on your own, how were you scared?
Of course. I was terrified.
A couple people have asked me. I've only done 7, and each time it was, I had the tandem on my back. So after the first jump, I didn't get scared again because I just sort of trusted that the person behind me would take care of everything. A few people have asked me, would you get certified, licensed? I forget the correct term, but would you go on your own? I don't know if I have the courage to do that. It seems terrifying.
It is terrifying, but you can do it. And actually, an interesting thing about that, my best friend, his name is Vlad, he was terrified of heights. And he decided to take the course because he was terrified of heights. And now he's completely overcome this. He jumped already about 200 times, something like that. And it's amazing. So one of the things when you jump first time on your own, it's kind of misleading because you have your first jump in the course, you have these 2 guys next to you, 2 instructors that are jumping with you, mm-hmm. and they're holding you in the beginning, so you keep the body position, you maintain it well, right? So you feel comfortable, you feel confident, you are with these guys and everything, and then it comes the time when you need to open the parachute, and they just fly away. And then you figure out, man, I'm on my own. Like, what do I do now? Now I have to kind of navigate this thing somehow, and I have to land without breaking my legs.
Yep.
So it's a bit misleading because you have a feeling of confidence, but at the second they just fly away, so you're on your own. And I would definitely recommend you to try and do the license.
Oh man, it's funny because I'm not afraid of the jump. I'm not afraid of pulling the parachute. It's exactly what you just said. I'm afraid that I'm going to land wrong and I'm going to break my legs and be paralyzed for life. I think I would be fine jumping out of the plane. I think I have the confidence in myself to pull the chute at the correct moment. I'm afraid that I would, do something terribly wrong, get nervous, overanalyze it, and at that last minute, take my own leg out somehow.
I get what you say. At the same time, many people when I just got into skydiving, many people asked me, "Why are you doing that? It's so dangerous. It's so this and that." And it is dangerous, right? But if you look at the statistics, actually, it's much less dangerous than driving a car, for example. Then there's another aspect of it. Because it's so dangerous, you are extremely cautious. So every time before I jump, I check myself about 4 or 5 times. So one time is I check the equipment before I even get it on me. Then I try it on, I check it one more time. Then I kind of leave it on the side. Before we get up on the airplane, I check it one more time. Then I check it one more time in the air before I jump. So 4 times basically. And another guy is also looking at it. So you're very cautious about it. And for me, every time I do it, I have about, let's say, 10, 15 minutes when we are descending or ascending, right? Ascending to the right level. So I'm just thinking about all the wrong things that can happen and how do I solve them. Like, if my parachute doesn't open, what do I do? And I kind of practice that. If I open it, but it's, we have some issue with it, what do I do? And I'm practicing that. So you kind of, because it's dangerous, you're very cautious, and this is what causes less and less accidents in this sport. It's actually funny, when I first came to the Czech Republic to do the course, I talked with the instructor, and the day we came there was an Israeli skydiver, very experienced, that crashed and died the very same day, and I was supposed to start the course the next day, right? And I did. So I asked him, like, is it dangerous? Why did that happen to her? And he told me, this year 3 people died in the Czech Republic from skydiving. 7 people died from fishing. So I'm like, what? What's going on here? So he tells me, yeah, it's it seems risky and it seems very dangerous, but at the same time, people are very, very careful when they do it because they're aware of the danger.
Yeah.
And, with fishing, people just get drunk, they fall into the water. So
there is when I lived in Sacramento, California, we had a town called Chico, very small town. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It's about an hour and a half outside of Sacramento, and every year they have some sort of event where everyone floats down a river, and there is one year where a guy handcuffed a keg or an ice chest to his ankle, ended up falling in the water. The ice chest dragged into the bottom of the river, and the guy drowned because he didn't have the keys. And it's crazy, man. But what? And I'm assuming he was sober when he set this all up. Like, he wasn't drunk already when he handcuffed an ice chest to his ankle. But I don't know. To your point, I could see how that makes a ton of sense. That because I'm afraid, I would do a redundant amount of checks around the parachute and just different conditions to make sure that I get out of that situation safely. It's funny that you mentioned Vlad was scared of heights. I, too, myself, am scared of heights, but not scared of skydiving. And I think it's because just this morning, me and Thad went on a walk, and we have a hike that we go on that's 5 minutes away, and it ends where we overlook the bridge that you may have passed on to get here. Yeah. And there's probably a 20-foot drop over the side of the hill. It's not, I can't call it a mountain, but there, the hill that we're on. And I get anxious when he gets too close to the edge. And it's funny to me how me, Vlad, and probably a ton of other people are scared of heights, but we're not scared of skydiving.
That's interesting. You have this horrible feeling here, right? When you kind of look down.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to have it too when I was young. It's interesting because probably in skydiving you just you just go and do it. And also, you sit in the airplane, right? And then you don't really look outside too much, right? And then the scariest moment is when you're on the edge and you look down, right? That's the scariest moment for me too and for most people. But it ends like that. It's very fast, and then you're with this adrenaline rush that you talk about. So no, that's interesting. But for Vlad, for example, he completely overcome this fear of heights because of this.
Yeah, is Vlad here in Austin by chance?
No, he's in Israel.
He's in Israel. Okay. Do you guys keep in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. We so because of the military, and we met in school. I think it was in 10th grade. So we've been together, until 12th grade. Then both of us went to the military, and since then it's kind of like we're meeting each other maybe once every few weeks, because both of us we were combat soldiers. And in Israel, it's not like here. In Israel, it's not like you go to Iraq and you stay there for a couple of years, or you have these rotations. You go to the base, and because Israel is very small, so usually after 2 or 3 weeks you go back home for the weekend just to kind of refresh. You can do it because it's very close. It's only like a couple of hour drive or something like that. Yeah. So because of that, we used to keep in touch every weekend. We have this tradition that on Friday, doesn't matter where we at, we call each other and we just talk for a few minutes, kind of see what's going on, and we keep it until today.
And so every Friday you still call each other?
Yeah. Sometimes we miss it, because we're now we're grown-ups. Now we have different things. So sometimes we miss it, but we're keeping it. It's great.
That's awesome, man. Since I've been in Austin, I've been trying to the gym I go to is 20 minutes away, so I try to make a habit of calling someone back home, either my way there or my way back. And I'm not great at it.
No, me too, man. I get it. I have a notification on my phone to call him, every Friday because I forget. I have to write down everything.
Before I forget, because it's not on my list of questions, what's your tattoo on your forearm and how did you decide to get it?
Yeah, so it says luta livre. That's in Portuguese, and it means free fighting.
It's odd, dude. That design. Did you make that up or
No.
no?
I was in Brazil when I was 17. I went there to training camp for a fight that I had, and I trained in a very good place there. So luta livre is basically it used to be a rival to jiu-jitsu. Back then, it's a very interesting story. When jiu-jitsu started, so you had jiu-jitsu and you had luta livre. Jiu-jitsu it was for the people that had a bit more money and they could afford to buy the clothes, the kimono, right, the gi. And luta livre was the same thing but without the clothes, for the poor people. And they had this huge rivalry.
Rivalry.
Yeah.
That hard for me too.
Yeah. They had it for years, and so I started with the luta livre, and that's just what it means. The name of my club was Israeli Luta Livre MMA Academy. So that's what it says.
That's awesome.
And I did it back then in Brazil. I just found a place. I found a place that makes the tattoos. I told him just draw something, and that's it.
And then you have one more. This one. What's that one? Yeah.
Oh, that's the Cassiopeia. It's a constellation of stars.
Okay.
And me and my wife, when I was in the military, when we were kind of just starting dating, and we used to go to the beach. I like to just kind of when I go home, take her, go to the beach, and just look at the stars and kind of show her what's going on.
Yeah.
So we both made the tattoo. I made the Cassiopeia, and she made the. In Hebrew we call it the Big Bear, but it has a different name, I think, in English. So it's two different constellations that show the northern star. So she have the other one. I forgot the name of it. It's the big, not the Big Bear, man. Another one.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Ursa Major.
Yeah, exactly.
There it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
In Hebrew we say Big Bear. I don't know why. So anyway, so she has that one, and I have the Cassiopeia, and both of them show the northern star.
That's awesome. In the U.S., if you wanted to join the military, you have the Navy, Marines, Army. I feel so bad. I'm forgetting one. I'm going to blame the fact that it's morning and I'm on my only on my first cup of coffee. You have the Coast Guard. That's another one. In Israel, you joined the Navy Special Forces. Why did you join that specifically?
So somewhere at the age of 16 or 17, I realized that I want to join that place. It was always very mysterious. You always kind of, every once in a while you hear about some operation that they did, but you never get the whole, all of the details. And for me, I really, I like adventures. I like things that are kind of low key, and it immediately attracted me. I knew that I wanted to be a combat soldier anyway, and also this is one of the top units in the army, or in the military in Israel, and I knew that I want to be in one of them. And I just decided to try for it. But my story is a bit different. I couldn't really try because I studied in a school that was funded by the Air Force. So you have to go to the Air Force, and I was forced to go there even though I didn't want to. And I had to fight for quite a long time to get the chance to even try for the Navy.
What did you have to do to get that chance?
So basically, when you are already in the military, it is very hard to change the position. And even let me back up a little bit. From our school, it's very difficult to do something that is not the Air Force. So from something like 200 people that we had in my not class, but in the same we had like 9 different classes, but the same year we had about 200 people, and only 10 got the chance to be combat soldiers, and that was the best year in the school's history until then. Like before that, it was like 2 or 3 every year, because they are funding it and they are spending a lot of money on basically your education. Yep. So they do everything to keep you in the Air Force after that. So when I got the first day when I went to the military, I knew that I'm going to basically tell them that I'm not going to the Air Force. And in Israel, if you tell them I'm not going where you sent me, you go to prison, the military prison. So I knew that that's what I'm going to do. And luckily, I had a friend there that also started his service in the same day, and he told me something pretty smart. He told me, we can always go to prison. We can always say no and just tell them we don't want to do it anymore. We want to try something different, and they will send you to prison. So he said, let's try the nice way first.
Yes, good idea.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah. But I was a rebel, so I immediately thought about the other way. So I decided to listen to him, and we were both kind of trying at the same time to get out from the Air Force and go to a combat unit. Eventually, he wasn't successful, unfortunately, and he finished his service in the Air Force. But for me, during the 1 year, I had to apply 3 different times to get a chance, and twice they basically said no, and you have to wait for months until you get a response from them. So for the 3rd time, they didn't want to even give me the opportunity. And actually, my commander back then in the Air Force, he told me he did everything to kind of keep me out of this. So I went to his commander. I kind of passed, and something you shouldn't do. But that guy decided to give me the opportunity and kind of told my commander, right, he's trying so hard for so long, and eventually he just wants to do something good. He wants to volunteer to an elite unit. It's something that kind of most people respect that. Yeah. So he made him give me the chance to do it. My commander came to me and he told me, Max, you did something that I really don't like. You went to my commander. So I have to give you this chance, but I know that you will fail. And once you fail, you will come back here, and I don't want to hear any word about this anymore. And I said, all right, that's all I need. Like, I only need this one chance. So I got the chance. I went for the tryouts, and I was successful. And a month after, I started in the Navy.
Do you recall how that made you feel in that moment when he came to you and said, you will fail?
I love it.
I had a similar situation, man, where it's funny because I moved to Austin to start this podcast because in Sacramento, California, that's where the capital is. It's a government town. There's not, sorry, Sacramento, but there's not a lot of interesting people there. I wanted this podcast to be in person. Austin, there's a ton of interesting people. So that was a big motivation behind moving here. And I remember that one friend in particular told me that that's just a dream. It's never going to turn into anything. Like, you're wasting your time going out to Austin, starting a podcast. Like, you have your day job, just go to your day job. And I almost think that part of the, if I can dare to say this, success of the podcast was thanks to him, because when he told me that's just a dream, it's not going to go anywhere, it lit a fire in me to almost to prove him wrong and be like, you know what? If this podcast goes nowhere, at least I can say, fuck you. I moved to Austin, I started it, and it's not a dream, it's a reality. So that's cool that it sounds like that particular individual had the same effect on you.
Exactly. And I heard it many times before, but with him it was different because I felt like we had a pretty good connection, and I was always a good soldier. I was always doing what he needed, and I tried everything, and maybe this is also one of the reasons why he didn't want to let me go, because I was a good soldier. Mm-hmm. And it motivated me. And, I always like to keep reminding people, you should never basically underestimate someone that believes in himself. You should never discourage someone that believes in himself. If someone tells you that he wants to do something, right, except if it's like a completely stupid idea, right, something that doesn't make any sense at all. So of course you should tell him. But if someone has such a big dream that is just, it's hard for you to see, just let him go with it. Let him try, let him succeed, or let him fail. Anyway, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he fails, it's a good thing.
Yep.
So, and too many times people that don't believe in others, eventually they are proven to be wrong. So don't be that guy.
Yeah. I remember, who was it? Let me pull up my Audible real quick. There's a book I was listening to. It may have been Rob O'Neill. He's the guy that killed bin Laden. It's called The Operator. It's a great book. I can't recall who it is now, but I remember someone there is a book that I read, and in part of the book, someone had got their first opportunity. He was an actor. He was trying to be an actor, and he got called in to do, what's it called when you're not guaranteed a part in a movie, but you try out for it, like a tryout, basically. And his father told him, if you get accepted, I'll be proud of you, and if you don't get accepted, I'll be as equally proud of you, because in those failures, I think we can learn just as much as we can through the successes, if not more. Man, I'm butchering that quote and that whole story, but I think that sometimes we see failures as we beat ourselves up over it, and we mentally flog ourselves. It's like, man, I fucked that one up. But really, a quote that I heard recently was that someone said that all his greatest skill sets came from his biggest failures, and 100%. So he's so grateful for them now. And now at 35 years old, I can look back on my teenage years and my 20s. I'm like, yeah. I'm so thankful for those moments. Like, back then I wasn't, but now looking back on it, if I had lived a life of luxury and if I'd never had any failures, I don't know who I'd be today, but it's not this version of me sitting here right now.
Exactly, man. It's look at every success story. I'd say 99.9% of them is people that failed many times along the way. And people that really have some value, they always fail because they have to go through this process. Like, you can have overnight success, right? It happens. It's very few people have it, right? But usually those things don't last because, all right, you have a huge success, but you don't have the skills to handle it. And if something happens, you don't have the skills to do it all over again. So those failures, they teach you so valuable lessons. And one of the things I learned also in MMA, I learned many things from martial arts, many things. And one of them was very early. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you learn. You never lose anything. Like, even if you are losing a fight, eventually you learn from it. It's a good thing. And I think this should be the approach with everything that you do. Like, don't worry about it too much. Just give it a try.
Yeah. When we were on the phone, you mentioned that when you first joined the military, you had your initial training, and it started out with 3 months of hell. Can you go into a little bit about what you were doing during those 3 months?
Yeah. So many times people ask me if I would do military again, and except for those 3 months, It's just so. This is the first step of the training. Our training is one of the longest training in the military. It's 1 year and 8 months. So for 20 months, they just basically you go through hell. But these 3 months is the first step where you go through a period where they just try to remove everyone who are not strong enough mentally to overcome this thing, right? Or they are not a good fit. So they will do anything to break you. And basically, you sleep about 6 hours a night because there's a law.
That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
There's a law that you have to sleep, but it makes a lot of sense because put aside those 6 hours, you just train all the time. You go through different types of training. So you wake up, you go for a swim, right? Cold water, it doesn't matter what are the conditions or if there are high waves and stuff like that. You just go for a swim. And then you go for a run, and then you come back, you eat something, you do another training, physical training, and then you do some mental training. And you just go through this for 3 months, and they put all the pressure in the world at you, like everything that they can do to break you. And you feel it. You feel it mentally, you feel it physically, and it's just, most people just quit. Like when we started, we were 44 people, and when we finished, we were 17. And I'd say that about 90% of them quit. It's not that they were kicked out because they're not a good match. They just quit.
Yeah.
So actually you have 2 weeks during those 3 months that they call them hell weeks. And during those weeks, you don't sleep 6 hours. They take your watch. You have no idea what's the time. You're constantly tired. They just kind of make your life miserable. And I cannot talk about the specific of different trainings.
Sure.
But they just make it really to be hell. And one of the things that they also do, they give you a pair, so you have to be with someone always close to him for a distance of not more than 3 meters. What is it, like 9 feet? 9 feet, I believe. Because if you are so tired that you are not clear mentally, you have no idea what's going on. And people got hurt during those weeks because they didn't have anyone to see them, to watch after them. If they see that, if one of the instructors will see that you are more than 3 feet away from your partner for this week, they will actually give you a rope and tie your hands to each other, and then you just stay like this for the rest of the week, because they just worried for you.
Yeah.
So that's insane. So those 3 months I would never do again in my life.
Do you happen to still keep in touch with whoever your partner was?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, he's getting married. He doesn't know that yet, but he's getting married on May 5th, and I told him that I will not be there, and eventually I'm able to come. So I'm actually flying back to Israel, and I will land in Israel on the 5th, and I just go right away to his wedding.
Heck yeah.
And he's a great guy.
Did you guys know each other before that?
No. I didn't know anyone from the military, and that's actually one of the nice things about army, because you get to meet people that you would never have the chance to meet otherwise.
If I know you just acknowledged the fact that you would never do that 3-month training again, but let's say you were put in charge of that training, would you change it or would you keep it as is?
I actually was a commander too, so I had the chance to be a commander during those 3 months for other 60 something guys, and we changed many things. Because some of the things I think that they were very, let's say, they didn't follow the rules when I was there, right? They didn't follow the rules, which it has a good aspect because it builds you mentally, and they just try to mess with you. So they do things that they're not supposed to do, but at the same time, it's also building you. But we took a bit different approach during my time there, and it was instead of kind of trying to make the life of the soldiers very difficult, all the time, and let's say kind of like waking up someone from his sleep, right? Mm-hmm. And they used to do it all the time, waking up from his sleep and things like that. So we decided to change the approach and just make the trainings themselves much, much harder. But once they sleep, when they rest, when they eat, we don't touch them. Like, this is their time to kind of build strength and everything. And eventually, it turned out this is one of the best teams that we had, because they became very very strong mentally, and they became very independent. And one of the things, when the commanders are doing things that they shouldn't do to you, you start to be scared. You start to act from fear, and that's not the way that you should act as a soldier, in my opinion. So we're trying to shift it.
I don't think you want anyone acting from fear. Soldier or not, you don't want that to be the basis of your decision-making processes. I'm afraid, so what do I want to do?
It happens all the time because you're afraid from the outcome. You're afraid what will be my punishment, right? So you just do stuff.
Yeah.
But we try to build a different type of mentality where they get a lot of independence and they get rewarded when they do good things. But if they do mistakes, we didn't used to punish them as much. We just kick the shit, kick their ass during the training, and we used to make the training much harder than I had them. But during the kind of times in between, the period of time in between, we treat them much better.
Yeah. You talked about a unexpected friendship that came about as your time in the military. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up in the area that I grew up in Israel, I lived in the south. I grew up in the south.
You want a refill?
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. I'm good. The coffee is great.
Excellent.
So growing up in the south, it was completely different from anyone else that I had in my team, in my unit. Most of the people that come to the unit, they are second, third generation in Israel, and they come from very good families, established families, and most of the times they're pretty wealthy people that got good education, and in my case, I grew up in a very bad city that have a very bad reputation, a lot of drugs, a lot of fights, all the time in the streets. And my mentality was completely different. I couldn't really understand those people. So for me, outside of the military, I would never thought that I can have this type of friendships. When I came to the military, there was one guy. When I came to the unit, there was one guy that I couldn't connect to him, in any way. I couldn't understand him. He couldn't understand me. It didn't click at all. And then during the training, during these different challenges that we go through together, somehow we started to connect. And I love this guy, man. I love him right now. And it's something that I don't think that would have ever been possible without it. And two things, actually interesting things that happened to the two of us. He was about to quit. And we both were injured. And all the rest of the team, they went for a run. And it was, I think it was February or January. It was very, very cold. So what they do to mess with you, this is one of the things that we didn't do, by the way. They were thinking that we are lying, right? We said, both of us, we had the problem with the shin, like shin split.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
those hurt. I've had minor cases of that, and they hurt so bad.
Yeah, and we had pretty bad ones, and they didn't believe us. So instead of letting us, some time to rest and to actually be able to recover from this thing, they put us in the cold water, in the sea, until the rest of the team is finishing the run. And the goal was to break you. The goal was to make you say that you prefer to run. So this guy was about to quit. There was only me and him, and I convinced him to stay. And eventually finished the training, and he was a great soldier. So I helped him back then. He appreciated it very much. And then a few weeks later, I almost died swimming in one of our morning swims. I was a horrible swimmer. I didn't even know how to swim when I joined the Navy. So we had this dock in the base, and there were so bad conditions, and the waves were so high that I got under. This guy just swam, went after me, and he took me out of there, and I literally saw my life ending there because it was so bad, and I saw what's going on and these clashes of waves. So when you go through this stuff together, you put everything aside. You don't care about traditions, about cultures, about his opinions, that we couldn't connect. You just now you like each other.
Yeah.
You like each other. You get along, and he's a great guy. I love him until this day.
Why do you think you convinced him to stay? Why did you care?
We went through the same thing. I understood him. Man, I wanted to quit myself, many times. I had a very interesting conversation with a guy that was a commander in the army, and he started a business. And he told me, I'm looking for people that would never even think about quitting. Like it doesn't even go through their minds to quit. And when I heard that, I told him, I think you're missing something. I felt like I wanted to quit for many times. Like I know so many people that wanted to quit, but this decision, like this conscious decision, it's so hard right now, and I'm not going to quit. It only shows that the person is very strong mentally. So I told him I don't care that people are thinking about quitting. It's fine. The question is what they do about it. Do they quit or don't they? So I understood him, and I just I always like helping others. So why would I let him quit?
Right. I heard someone say that just because you have a thought doesn't mean you have to believe it. So, because I think about quitting my job. Right. I haven't had the thought of quitting the podcast yet, but I'm sure at some point it will come for whatever reason. Someone says something, or I don't know. I'm tired. I'm anxious. I think it's okay to have those thoughts. You just have to realize, like, just because you're thinking it doesn't mean you have to believe it or act on it.
Exactly, because you cannot control your thoughts, right? To a degree that sometimes things come up. Of course, you can control certain thoughts because you can consciously move to this direction and think about things. But sometimes things just pop up in your head from nowhere, and it's okay. But you can control what you do about them. Let's take men for example. Most men thinking about just getting a side chick or doing something like that, or being with another woman. But you can decide not to do it. It's okay that you think that this way. It's nature, right? Not everyone are only thinking about one partner, and it's okay that you think this way, but you don't have to do it. So I think that people that actually overcome those things and they make conscious decisions that don't relate to their feelings, this is a real strength.
Yeah. I'm curious if I know I want to be careful of how I ask this, but what was one of your coolest experiences in the military, in the sense of like maybe a vehicle you got to drive, a weapon you got to operate, or even if there was somewhere like a place in the world you visited? Was there any moment in the military specifically where you were just like, holy cow, I can't believe that I'm experiencing this right now?
Yeah, I had it a few times in different operations that I've been to, that I'm sitting there, or doing something that we're doing, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm 20 years old, I'm 21 years old, like, what the hell is going on here? It's crazy what I'm going through, and it used to really amaze me, the things that you can do, the things that you can achieve. I think the most incredible feeling that I had in the military, and I was very lucky to have it multiple times, when you go to a special operation, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, right? You do something completely crazy, and 12 hours after the act, you're sitting in the train on the way home next to regular people like you, right? And they have no idea what you just did. They have no idea what you've been through, and you're sitting there and you feel good. You feel good, like I'm really contributing to this country. I'm helping to protect in some way the person that is sitting next to me, and he have no idea about it. And I just love that feeling. I love to be low key, and that was amazing. But in terms of other things that we did in the military, it's just amazing the amount of experiences that you can do in such a short period of time. Most people are going to the military for 3 years. About 6 months is the training, so you have 2.5 years left, and you experience so many things. You use so many weapons, you use so many vehicles, you see so many places, right? You meet so many people, so many great experiences, and it's just amazing, like how much you can do in a short period of time.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab a drink from the fridge real quick. You want one?
Sounds good. No, I'm good with it.
You got one? Okay.
Yeah. And I love your place. No, it's great.
Thank you. I'm very happy here. It's I like the way the I like to call it the studio, but I like the way this turned out. I love the porch, man, and part of the reason I love the porch is because I sort of feel bad for my dog. That I take him for a 2 mile walk every morning, give or take, and we go to the dog park every night for about an hour. But during the rest of the day, he just sort of sleeps. And in our prior home, we didn't have a porch. He loves it out there. He growls at the squirrels, the birds, the other dogs, and I feel like the porch is his equivalent to a TV. And so I'm so grateful for it because now he has a form of entertainment almost, and he's not bored during the day. But yeah, man, this has been a good home so far.
Yeah, and man, I absolutely get it. When I lived in Lithuania, I had an apartment. I bought an apartment there.
When you lived where? I'm sorry.
In Lithuania, in Europe.
Okay.
That's where I lived for. I think it was 5 years. So. I bought an apartment there with my wife, and we renovated. It was a very cool apartment. I liked it a lot, and then we got a dog, and I just felt so bad for him. We actually moved to another apartment, and that had a lot of nature around it, and we could take the dog for good walks, and we could unleash him, and so I completely get what you did it and why you did it, and it was the best feeling in the world to see him happy.
Yeah. I have a very personal 2-part question that I want to ask you. Not for my benefit, but for the benefit of the listeners. I think I mentioned to you that I know for a fact that back home I have several male teenagers, men who I did not expect to be my biggest fans, but they are. And some of them are considering joining the military. So I'm there. I'm asking this on their behalf. During your time in the military, it's just a thought that I was having yesterday. Did you kill anyone while you were during that time?
I was very lucky not to kill anyone.
You did not. I think that one person in particular, he told me that he's 16 right now, and he's considering joining the military after he graduates high school because. I hope I don't misquote him, but what he said was, I think it would make me a badass. I think it would make me a man. And as I was driving yesterday and I was thinking about your interview specifically, I was thinking, that sounds good. That sort of, it sounds badass to say that out loud, but I don't know if we take into consideration what joining the military entails. That 3 months of training that you went through, followed by another, you said it's 1 year and 8 months, right? So followed by another 17 months of training. And I don't know if we take into consideration the fact that if you do join the military and your country goes to war, you join thinking, oh, I'm going to be a badass. This is going to turn me into a real man, a real woman. But do we take into account you might kill someone? And even if it's for good reason, for justified reason, like that, it just seems like such a big deal to me. I can't even really articulate my question because I just sort of had this light bulb moment when I was thinking about you and this interview. So I guess what I'm getting at is, if you were to meet a 16-year-old in a coffee shop and they were considering to join the military, specifically, let's go with the example I just gave you. This is going to turn me into a man. I want to be a badass. What advice would you give that? Not even advice, but what would you say to that 16-year-old if they said that to you?
I think that's a great question. And my answer would be that this is the wrong motivation. If this is what you're thinking, then you're going there because of the wrong thing. Many people want, and this is the same in the Israeli military, right? You want, you think that once you kill someone, you're the man, and everything is is fine. But I know too many people who did and couldn't cope with it. I also know people who didn't have any problem with that, right? It really depends on your personal situation. But I think that the motivation is wrong. I think that the motivation to join the army should be from to one of two things. Either you really love your country and you really want to contribute to the country, or you want to obtain the tools and the skills that the military gives you that you would probably not get anywhere else, and this prepares you much better to life. So to this guy, I would tell him, take your time, think about it a little bit more. Try to understand what you're trying to achieve by going to the military, because killing someone will not make you a man at all. And I
Right.
can guarantee that. It's not what defines a man. You may think that way when you're 16, right? But it's not as bright as it looks. Not at all. So I would tell him, just take your time, think about it, think what are your actual motivations, what are you trying to achieve by going to the army, and if it's only that, don't do it. Don't do it, because eventually, when you will have the opportunity to do it, even if you don't have to, you will, because you were thinking about it for so long, right? And then you have power, you have the gun in your head, in your hand, you have this person, there, and you can be very light on the. We say, I don't know how it's called, this thing that you shoot.
Oh, like a trigger finger?
Yeah, the trigger. So you can be very light on the trigger and do it even if it's not the right thing, just because you thought about it for so long and you have it, kind of in your mind, and it's just the right decision, the wrong decision sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know people who went through this, and they just did it and they regret it.
Yeah. You mentioned that, some people, you go through some traumatic experiences by joining the military. If there was someone who happens to listen to this podcast who is still dealing with that traumatic experience and they're sort of in the middle of it, what for you has been, been a solution for moving past that?
You have to talk. You have to talk to other people. You have to talk with your friends. Maybe with family. With family, it's many times difficult, but you have to find this one good friend, that you can trust, that you can talk with. Many people, men in particular, think that it's, when you talk about your feelings, it's it's not a manly thing to do, and you have to be strong and you have to kind of maintain your emotions. Well, what happens is that then when you're 30 or 35, then one day you wake up and all of this trauma is coming back to you. So I know quite a few people who have PTSD or other traumas from many, and I think that many people have traumas in other areas of life. You gotta find someone that you can talk to, you can share it,
Yep.
and be very careful about who it is. You need to get good advice, and you have to have someone that can really support you and can listen. And if you can, I think that a psychologist is a great thing, like really a great thing. I actually, it's quite personal, but I have no problem to talk about personal stuff. I had gone through some sessions, and it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot, and my very close friend who have a PTSD, he did it for years. And it helps you manage. It doesn't go away, right? You still have it, but you manage it. When you talk it through, it just feels better.
I love that you said you have to talk, because I have a friend who, and I brought him up on one other episode, but back in 2021, 17 days before Christmas, his brother passed away at 31 years old. I never asked him what the cause of death was. I figured it's not my business and it doesn't matter. And he might be sick of answering that question, to be honest. But we got a workout in 2 or 3 days before the anniversary of his brother's death. I knew I was moving out to Austin. He was actually it made the move hard, because of people like him in my life that were very special to me, and I like to be in close contact with them. But we were at the gym, and I feel like the gym is where he's the most confident. His chest is out, shoulders back, chin raised high. And at the end of the workout, it was near Christmas time. So as you probably know, gyms are very quiet near Christmas time. People are out busy doing other things. I knew I was moving to Austin. I wasn't sure if it was my last time seeing him in person. And so I asked him, I said, hey, it's been about a year since your brother passed away. How are you doing with that? And immediately he teared up. His shoulders went down. He put his head down. I forget what he said exactly, but he basically said, I'm not doing that great with it. And I asked him, are you talking to anybody about it? Your other siblings, your parents? Have you thought about, getting a therapist? anyone who outside of me, because we have talked about it on several occasions, but to your point, I can listen, but past that, I don't think I'm the right person to be giving advice on how to grieve. And he said, no, I'm not talking about it to anyone, because the way that my parents raised me, that's not what men do. Where do you where did that come from, that to be a man, I don't show, like, my fucking brother died and I have to keep that inside. I cannot cry or show grief that my brother is dead, and to be a man, I can't talk about that. Where does that come from?
Man, I see that all over, and unfortunately, I was this way too. I grew up, I didn't have anyone to talk to, and everyone that saw me in difficult situations, they always told me, "You're the toughest man that we know." And they felt this way because I would never say anything. I would never show anything, right? Martial arts taught me to go through a lot of pain, and I can basically keep my face the same, like you would not see anything. And my brother, like, beating me, when I was a kid, you have to kind of show him that, you're fine. But inside you feel so bad. And I have to say to anyone who's listening, like, that's crap. You have to talk. You have to talk to cope with things. It will come after you at some point if you keep it inside, and it will only be worse. It will be much stronger. The feelings are only getting stronger and stronger. You have to resolve every issue that you have, if it's a small issue or a bad one. And this thing about, you cannot cry. If you cry, you're not a real man. I think that's crap too. And I have very good friends, very, very good friends that I just had this discussion a couple of times in the last week with two of my best friends. They think that they shouldn't show emotions to specifically women, right? Because it makes them less of a man. And I was like this in my entire life. And then with my wife, I started to show my emotions. And I feel that's the most beautiful thing that I can do. And maybe some people would see that, and when they hear that sometimes I cry next to my wife, so it will make me less of a man. But I don't give a shit. I think that's the right thing to do. That's a real connection. And someone who doesn't have it, so probably there is some issue in the connection that you have with your partner. And it's just in my opinion, it's just a wrong perception. Men are human beings, and like everyone else, and of course you should be strong, but crying doesn't make you weak. I think that it just shows that you're a human being. The question is, what do you do about your emotions? Like, okay, you cry because it's hard. Will you quit, or will you continue, or what will be the solution that you give to that? That's the actual question that kind of defines are you a real man or not?
Yeah.
How do you cope with it? Like, what are you going to do? What are the actions? Not the fact that you're crying, or anyone can cry. So, where did it come from? I think just, many years ago, life was much harder than now, and to survive, you had to be strong, and you have to be perceived as strong. So, you don't show any weakness.
Yeah. During your time in the military, we're going to move on to business here in a moment, because you are a business owner. I have a couple questions for you around that. Yeah. But when you think about your time in the military, what are you what are you most grateful for from that time?
I'm most grateful for the friendships that I made there. Friendships, 100%. It's something that nobody can take. Like, unfortunately, I'm not near my team. But I still have the WhatsApp, and I'm looking at whether I'm involved in the conversations, but I'm not there. The day we finished the military, I immediately, like after a few days, I already left Israel, and since then I'm kind of traveling. I cannot say traveling, but I'm working in different places. I'm living in different places, so I don't meet with them a lot. But you can always pick up the phone, and you know that someone will take care of you.
Yeah.
Or someone can help you. I know that if tomorrow someone will kidnap me, then my team will look for me. I just know that I can trust these people for the rest of my life. And this type of friendships you can only gain or have when you go through very difficult things together, when you understand each other like nobody understands you.
Yeah. It's funny because listening to you, I asked you the question a few minutes ago about who should consider joining the military, but when I hear about what you're grateful for, your friendship with the guy that saved your life, I almost feel like everyone should join the military because there's something that if I was kidnapped today, I'm sure my family would call the police, but like, I don't, and I'm not saying this in like a victim way or anything. I'm just sort of thinking, I don't know if I have that relationship with anyone. I don't know if I have anyone who would drop what they were doing, get on a plane, fly to Austin, and go on this life or death mission of making sure that I'm okay if I disappeared. But you started talking a minute ago when I said I think everyone should join the military because if nothing else, you get a different perception of humanity and you can form friendships and community that if you didn't join the military, you might not ever get.
100%. I think that anyone should join the military. I think I would send my children to the military. I don't know. I know that maybe some people will see it and they will say, "You still don't have children, so you don't know how it feels, right?" But again, what I feel doesn't matter because eventually, what is the right decision? This is the question. And I think that the military is preparing you for life much better because the reality is that life is pretty damn convenient these days, right? It's pretty easy.
It's very convenient.
It's very convenient. Like you can eat whatever you want, you can live wherever you want, you can do whatever you want, right? But when something bad happens, are you prepared for this type of situation? And I think that the military will prepare you for that. Even if you're not a combat soldier, right? You will still get many skills and many tools and many things that you would not get anywhere else in regular, let's say, regular life.
Yeah.
For example, when you're in the military, you learn how to be disciplined. You learn how to assess risks. You learn how to manage your time. You learn how to cope with your emotions and do the things that you should do anyway. There are a bunch of different skills that you learn in the military that are very, very hard to gain without it. So I would definitely say that probably 99.9% of people should do it. That's my opinion. Yeah. You also get mature much faster. If you will talk to people in Israel, right, that are 21 years old after the military, and then you will talk with anyone else in other countries who haven't been in the military, you will see the difference because it's just again those experiences that you get in the military, those relationships, this conversation, this broad understanding of things, meeting different people that you would never meet otherwise. That just makes you a better person.
Yeah. I had one guest on the show who I think this was caught pre-recording. I don't know if I had turned the mics on yet, but she appears white. If you were just to observe her on the street, you might think that she is a Caucasian female. And then as soon as she starts talking and you hear her accent, and then when you learn her name is Hidea, she has mentioned that she has had several racist comments towards her since she has moved to America as soon as people realize that, oh, she's not white. I'm curious if your time in the military, the friendships that you formed, did that change your perception on how you see humans? Because even me, I think, I grew up in a relatively white town, and I think that humanity in general, we are so quick to judge people based off of the color of their skin, the sound of their voice, their name, where they were born. These things that at the end of the day, we have zero control over. We had zero control where on the planet we happen to be born. And I'm wondering if, your time in the military, plus you've been all over the world, did that change your perception on how you view other people?
Yeah, I don't, I never really I don't care about race, about color, about those things at all. However, I think that it makes sense that we judge, right? I wouldn't be so critical about that because at the end of the day, those these are perceptions that we have and they're there for a reason. And what I care more about is different races. They have different cultures and different traditions, and that's something that you kind of you have an initial thought about what it is. But I would never avoid a conversation with someone like that. I would never, for example, think about not hiring someone from a different race. I first have a conversation because I know that it doesn't really matter. You can be a great person if you're black. You can be a great person if you're Asian or whatever. And at the same time, you can be white and be a horrible person. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
So I think that it makes sense, and people understand more and more these days that you should give people a chance. You should talk with them, really engage in a conversation, understand who they are, understand what they care about, what are their values. This is the actual question: what are the values, and not okay, he's black, so he's probably he's probably a bad person, or he's probably more aggressive, or he's probably have. So that's how I view this. I think that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I remember one time I was super grateful to be invited to an event where they asked me to essentially give like a motivational presentation. I talked a lot about how when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I made most of my decisions based off. Squirrel just tried to get on the porch. They're not. That squirrel's not coming back after that. But they asked me to give essentially a motivational presentation, of course, and I went. I gave my speech, and afterwards, an older black man, probably in his 80s. I'm so bad at guessing age, but significantly older than I am. He came up to me and he said, man, you and me are the exact same, because both of us made so many decisions early on in our life based off of fear. But at the end of the day, that's what we have in common. I was afraid of the fact that I'm losing my train of thought here because the damn dog distracted me. And now I'm curious if squirrels are going to run through the door. But it was just a profound moment that he mentioned that, we were both acting on fear, and that's what makes us the same. I'm black and 80, you're 30 and gay, and we both had these things that we based all of our decisions off of, and that's our common denominator. And I was so grateful to have met him and for that moment, because it was so eye-opening.
No, it's an interesting thought. And I want to take a minute to go back to your last question. In terms of that's a bird, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, the perception of different races and different traditions, it's here for a reason, because it's for the most part it's like that. So for example, right, I can say that because I'm coming from a Ukrainian. I'm Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So the Soviet people, right? Russian, Ukrainians, Belarus, Moldova, all of this area, they are perceived as very cold people. You can see this in the movies all the time, like this cold, emotionless people. Or, for example, I hear many times that Indians are bad with times, right? Like they never are on time and things like that. So you can have a perception of what this person can be, but again, the question is what do you do with that? So, all right, I'm thinking that this guy will be very cold, or I'm thinking that this guy is going to be a bad employee because he's always late, right, or something like that. But give him a chance. That's my point. Give him a chance, because at the end of the day, people evolve. People go through different experience. So I'm thinking, today there's all this talk about equality and equity and this type of stuff. So I'm thinking the thing that I really like and I can relate to is the equality of opportunity, right? Just give anyone an opportunity, give him the chance to prove himself, and then decide. Like, it's okay if you think something about the person before that, because it's human, it's natural. And I think it's just the way we are. It's a defense mechanism that we have. But I think that now we're at a time that we already understand that it's not like it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. People evolve. People see so many different cultures. Everything is open today. So you gotta give a chance to anyone, even if you have some feeling that is kind of stronger than you because it's natural.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. Well said. How did you land in Austin, Texas?
Austin. So my business partner and I, his name is Nikita, and he's, by the way, a very interesting guy. I think you will enjoy having him here. He was a combat soldier too. So we started the business about 1.5 years ago, B7 Holdings, and we knew that we want to do business in the United States. And the reason why is because we see a lot of opportunities here. This is really the land of the free, and we think that young people today don't appreciate that enough. Because the United States is not a real representation of the world and what you see. It's like it's one of the best places to live in. Like you can do anything. You can have any opportunity that you like. So we knew that we want to do business here, and then we started looking for deals here to acquire companies, and we had 3 of them. One of them was here in Austin, and I was in Austin before. I have a good friend here, and I know that in general it's a very good place. It's booming. We decided to come here and see how it goes. And 3 weeks after we came to the United States, we already signed an agreement with that business to continue with the acquisition. So that's why we're here.
Similar question to earlier. I have several people in my life who are thinking about starting a business, and right at this point today, all they have is the idea. One example is one of them wants to start a gym. So they haven't acted on it yet. There's no business plan. There's no investors. They just know, I think I want to do this thing. I think it's in my future. What would you tell someone who's thinking about starting their own business versus being an employee now that you've done it? You've been doing it for 1.5 years. Should they act on that impulse?
100%. I think if you have this in you, right? So you definitely should try it, because I think being a business owner and being independent, it's a great strength. It's a great opportunity for anyone, because you don't have any ceiling, right? You can decide what you want to do, and you can just continue climbing. When you're an employee, you always have some glass ceiling that is very hard to break, and you will always have some limits, right? And I think that the only thing the only person that I would tell him not to act on, starting their own business, it's someone that don't understand what goes into it. So what I mean by that is that if you really want to be successful as a business owner, you need to understand from the start that it's going to take a long time. It's going to be hard. Yeah. You're going to fail. You have to sacrifice many things. You have to sacrifice friendships. You have to sacrifice your time going out on Friday night. You have to sacrifice money, right? We haven't had any salary for, I haven't made a dime for 3 years. And I was okay with that, because I was fine with sacrificing, because I see the future. I know what is my vision. I know what are my goals. So if you are able to commit to that, go for it. If not, just don't start, because you will just spend a lot of your time, and eventually you will fail because you're not ready to commit.
That's a significant statement to make, that you haven't made a dime in 3 years. What is your personal motivation behind B7 Holdings?
I want to be free. I want to be financially free. I want to have the skills and to bring value to every conversation, to every person in my life, to every person that I meet in the street. And when you are a business owner, when you start your own business, you just go through a process of growth. You learn so much. You go through so many experiences that as an employee, you don't have the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Because you don't have anything to worry about when you're an employee, right? I mean, you will have things to worry about, like how am I bringing food to the table, or how am I closing the month for most people. But you don't really have anything to worry about. You wake up, you go to work, you come back, you have your work-life balance. And I understand that it's the right thing for some people. But if you have this entrepreneur fire in you, it will never be enough. And you will always feel bad for working for someone else. You will always feel bad for not trying, not going for it. So, you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of time and a lot of time without making any money until you're actually learn those skills, until you get those tools to be able to make money consistently. And it's completely fine. I was fine with it. That's what I was saying. If you are not able to, to sacrifice it, then just don't do it.
A personal question for you. So how do you keep life going? Over the past 3 years, where is your income coming from?
I saved some money when I worked in Africa.
Okay.
Right? I was always good about saving money. That's one thing about me. I was always kind of putting some money on the side, and I had enough money to buy an apartment in Lithuania, and then eventually I bought a few apartments. So in order to start the business, I sold everything I had, and I rented an apartment. And I knew that I have enough money for some like 2 years, right, to survive. And I hoped that during these 2 years I will have enough sources of income. And what happened is that about a month before these 2 years, when I already had nothing left, I kind of, all right, I'm screwed. What am I doing now? I just lost all of my money. I had nothing, and I started to borrow money from friends, and I started to invest some of this money into small things like small stocks, a little bit of cryptocurrency, this type of things. I didn't make a whole lot of money out of that, but it kept me going. And after about 2 years and 2 failed attempts, we started B7 Holdings, and this one is going great. It's exactly what I was hoping for, and much more. So I'd say to anyone who wants to start his own business, so just make sure that you have enough to kind of survive, right? And you don't have to quit your job.
Right.
Like you can, in the beginning, it's completely fine, because let's think about it this way, right? You have 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
You sleep, probably 6 or 7 hours. Maybe some people sleep 8 hours.
Yep.
Then you work for another 8. You have about 8 hours left, right? So you can spend even half of this time on starting to promote something on the side. Start learning another skill until you become until you come to a point that you can make a living out of this. For me, I was very fortunate to have this opportunity in Africa that basically it came because I was in the military, so I could use my skills to go and manage a security project in Africa and make good money.
Yep.
And then I was able to buy the apartment, which eventually I sold, and this kind of what helped me to sustain this, to go through this period of time.
Yeah. You bring up a great point that there's plenty of time in the day to work on, to carry both at the same time. And I think the biggest reason is, what's your why behind what you're doing. For me, I hope this podcast can become a full-time job for me. Right now, I probably spend about 2 to 3 hours on it on the weeknights when I'm working my 8 to 5 job, and probably 16 hours during the weekend, give or take. It depends on the weekend. But as I was reflecting on the month of March, I slept the least amount in March, and I worked more hours. But March of 2023 was one of the happiest months of my life.
That's amazing.
And I think it's because the podcast doesn't feel like work. I don't mind if I invest 10 hours into it on a Sunday, because I know that my mission it's what we said before we came on. For this podcast is going to reach the person who is grieving the death of a brother and is not dealing with that grief, and this happens to slip into their ear, and maybe after hearing this episode they go and get counseling, and so it doesn't feel like work, because my why behind it is so strong. I'm so passionate about let's post on social media today, let's get this episode edited, let's invite a new guest on. I think you just need to, for me, it's you need to figure out what's your whole reason behind wanting to start the business, why you want to join the military. That's what you need to evaluate.
I completely agree. And anyone who hears that, there is a great book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. So just read that book. You have it here?
It's on there. I've never read it.
Really?
It's on the bookshelf. I think I read the intro, and I've just been busy with other things.
It's a great book, and what you're saying is exactly on point. You will hear from business owners all the time. Start your own business, and you will never work another day in your life, because you do something that you are passionate about. You do something that you like. It doesn't feel like work, right? Me and my business partner, we work all the time, 7 days a week. When we came here, it was about 18 hours a day. We slept 4 or 5 hours, and we didn't have any personal time. Now it's a little bit less. We still don't have any personal time, but we take this couple of hours before we go to bed to just do something, read a book, watch something, to kind of get the feeling that we have some personal life. But we don't feel like it's work. We're doing what we need to do in order to be able to live better in the future, in order to be able to take care of the people that we care about, our families, our friends. At some point, and I think it's not too far away from us, unfortunately, but shit's going to hit the fan. And the situation right now, the economy is in a pretty bad shape, and it will go worse before it will become better. And we want to be able to take care about the people that we love when that happens. Mm-hmm. So it's okay, my business partner Nikita, he always says something very interesting that I really connect to, and I want to share with everyone. He says, take 3 years of your life, dedicate everything that you have during those 3 years, and you will change your life. Mm-hmm. Nothing will be the same again. You will learn so much during that time. You will grow so much. You will look at things differently. You will have so many skills, so many new connections, networks, right? And it only takes 3 years of your life to get to this new level where you will be able to live much better life for the rest of your life. And of course, from there, you can only continue growth. You will continue growth. But you have to use your time wisely. If you work, for example, right? Let's say you work the 9 to 5 that we said. You have two choices. You can either go home and kind of just watch Netflix and chill and that kind of stuff, or you can dedicate this time to things that help you in the future. I think that one of the issues that most young people have today, they never think about the future. They never really think, what are my goals? What do I want to achieve in my life? It's kind of like they live in another day and another day and another day, and you kind of flow. You just roll with life, but you never really think about, what do I actually want from this life?
Right.
And I think this is actually, for me, it was one of the hardest things to sit down and really think about, what do I want to achieve? It's kind of like mentally, it's very hard to do this. At least it was for me. But when I did it, everything becomes clear. You know what's your mission. You know what you need to do. Or even if you don't know what you need to do, you know what's your mission. So things start to fall into the right place for you to get there.
Yeah. Life moves so fast, and I don't think we intentionally fall into... I don't think anyone intentionally forgets to think about, what do I want out of life? You just have this expectation of, you go to school, and at least in America, or I'll even shrink it down even more, from my life growing up in Sacramento, you go to elementary school, you go to middle school, you go to high school, then the next thing that you're supposed to do is go to college, and then after you graduate from college, you get a job with whatever is in line with your degree, and you're then maybe you go to the gym, or you go home and watch Netflix. Like you say, we all need to take a moment to stop and think, like,
being intentional.
What is... am I actually doing the right thing just because that's what society and culture told me to do? Am I happy with it? Even just asking that, am I happy? You know, if I died today, would I be proud of that life that I just lived? Yeah, man, it just moved. Time moves so quick, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that you're again on point with that. With that question, will I be happy about my life when I die if I continue doing what I'm doing right now? Or what do I need to achieve in my life? What do I need to do in order to, be 80 and be satisfied with what I did?
Yeah.
And you gotta think about those things. And unfortunately, like you said, many people do things or say things all the time without thinking about them, just because other people do it, just because this is the way that it was done before. But you gotta question everything. You gotta ask yourself, why is that happening? Really ask yourself, why is that happening? Try to understand everything to the bottom of it. And actually, there is a very nice story that I like to tell, and that relates to this. There was this one guy that he's coming home and he sees his wife cooking chicken, and she's removing the wings of the chicken, right? And he's asking him, like, why are you doing that? And she says, I don't know, my mom used to do it this way. So he goes to her mom and he asks her, why did you used to cut the wings of the chicken? And she says, I don't know, my mom used to do it. So he goes to the grandma and asks her, and why are you doing that? And she says, I had a small pot. So people are just continuing doing things without really realizing what is the intention and what is the reason for them to do it.
Yeah.
And living this life of school, then college, then marriage and work, and it's not right for everyone.
Yeah.
And many people realize it very late in the process, and I know a few people that realize it very late in the process, and I'm happy for them that they're trying to change it, but it's very hard to change it when you have kids, when you are, when you already have other obligations. Although still possible, but much harder.
Yeah. Two more questions for you, and we'll wrap this thing up. And I want to say, in case I forget, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being so transparent, genuine, for taking time out of your day off. I don't even know if you take days off. It sounds like you don't. I'm so thankful that you're here. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Second to last question. I was listening to an interview of someone I admire. Her name's Alex Cooper, and she's the podcast host of a show called Call Me Daddy. Have you heard of her by chance? I believe you heard of Joe Rogan?
Yeah, of course.
She's up there with him. I think on one of the podcast charts, they're constantly trading places. So part of her interview, it was about her podcast and how she started, how it got to where she is now. And one of her biggest not regrets, I don't want to put words in her mouth, one of her biggest mistakes was how she chose her business partner. And she is so happy of the fact that that partner is gone. She's now running it independently. So as I admire her and look at both her wins and her losses and how should I grow my podcast, I like the fact that I'm independent. I like the fact I don't have a co-host. I get to control everything from the guests we invite, the equipment we buy. Whereas you have a business partner. So if there is someone that's thinking about starting a business and they're looking at both of us, how do you make that decision of should I have a business partner or should I be running this thing independently?
I think it depends on your goals, right? And for me, my vision and my goals are so high, and I expect so much of myself that I realize that it is very, very hard to achieve on your own. It is possible, but it will be much faster if you have someone with you. And I'm happy about my decision. We have great business partnership, and I've made wrong decisions before that. I chose the wrong business partners for me. They're great people. I'm in contact with them until today. Actually, I met one of them yesterday. We watched UFC together.
Yeah.
And great people, but the wrong business partners. And you're asking how to choose the right one?
I guess it's a two-part question. Should I have a partner? And if yes, how do you find them or choose them, or how do you know it's the right partner for you and your business?
Okay. So I'm very independent myself, and I always do everything alone. But for this business, it was very, very helpful to have a business partner because there is so much to do. I don't know everything, and of course, you can hire people, but I didn't have any money for that. So I had to find someone that have the skills that I don't have, and to complement me. And I was very lucky to have Nikita, which also is a long-time friend of mine, by the way, to approach me and say, hey, I know what you're doing, and I think I think we can work well together. What do you think about it? So for me, it's absolutely working, and I think that it will help anyone to achieve more in less time. And about the second part of the question, how to choose a business partner. So, completely honest, the way I did it when he approached me, and again, he's a good friend of mine. I know a lot of things about him. I just took a piece of paper and I wrote all of the pros and the cons with having him as my business partner. And the pros were much better than the cons, so I decided to go for it. Very put emotions aside for a second. What is logic? What makes sense? And I would say that there are few things that you need to consider. One of them, you have to have the same values, the core values, and I think that's the same with the business partner and also partner for life, like a wife. You have to have the same core values. If you have those, everything the rest is really not important because you can. I can give you an example. If both of you have this value that you are open to other opinions, right? That you are open for conversation, you will be able to talk about anything, even if you have different views. But if one of you, that's only one way, this is my way, nothing else works, so you will not be able to solve anything with this person. So I would say the first thing, most important, get someone that have the same core values like you. The second one would be get someone that is as hungry as you, because for me that was one of the things that I was missing, in the previous partnerships. I was very, very hungry, for success.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way from my business partners, and over time, it becomes very hard. Because you feel like everything is only you push much more than others. With Nikita, it's insane. We're both in synergy, both of us. If you have a bad day, the other guy just grabs you from the neck, come on, let's go, we gotta do this thing, and it's amazing. So this and probably those two things are most important. Someone that is as hungry as you, and someone that have the same values. And I would actually add one more.
Yeah.
Think about someone that think about your skills, right? Make a list of your skills and get someone that have complementary skills.
Yes.
If it's someone that have the same things that you don't need him. It's not helpful at all. But with us, for example, we are very different from each other. We have the same values, but we are very different, and we have different skills, and it's working perfect. I'm taking one side of the business, he's taking the other side of the business, and it's working great.
It sounds like too, in your situation, it almost happened organically. You did put some thought into it, like when you were writing the list of the pros and the cons, but if you guys weren't friends, you may have started B7 Holdings on your own. In a sense, if that friendship had never started. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I was on the way to do it, right? Because I tried twice. I started 2 investment companies, and both of them failed. With the first one, I actually hired a mentor. I told you I sold the house, and I used a big chunk of that money to basically hire a mentor to help me acquire my first business. And it was a great experience, but it didn't work out. The second time, I tried another time, and I had 2 business partners, and I didn't think about it too much. It just kind of flowed with it, and we tried, and we achieved big things, but eventually it also didn't work out, and after a year I stopped that. And the third time I was about to start on my own, and then Nikita came to me and said, I know what you're doing, and what are you thinking about us doing this together? So I'm very grateful to have him as my partner now.
That's awesome. You have no idea who my next guest is going to be. They have no idea who you are, but I'd be curious, what is one question you would like me to ask them?
One question that I would like you to ask. That's very interesting. I think I need to think about it for a second. I really don't know.
I stumped you.
Yeah, you did. No, but it's a good one. You know, actually, one thing that I was kind of thinking about recently, and myself, and I'd be happy to hear the thoughts of somebody else. Let's say you love someone very much. Let's say it's your wife or your kid, and you're in a situation that both of you are in a risk, and only one of you can survive. What do you do?
Oh my God!
I was just thinking about it.
I like that one.
I know my answer, but it's not obvious. It's not obvious at all, and I'd be happy to hear what somebody else has to say about it.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's great. You did stump me there.
I got the last guest's question for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
let's go for it.
If you could go back and change one hard part about your life, would you take the opportunity? And if so, what would it be and why?
It's interesting that you're asking it, because I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. And the answer is no. The answer, I wouldn't change anything. Because I think that all of the hard things that I've been through, and I've been through a lot of hard times. If it's poverty, to being on the streets most of my early childhood, and seeing things that a young kid shouldn't see, and fight all the time, and being through very difficult situations. I think that it only built me. It only taught me valuable things for life, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I don't regret any of them today. I don't regret any of them. So that's my answer. I wouldn't change anything.
I don't think I would either. Yeah. Max, this has been amazing.
I appreciate it very much. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. To all the listeners, you know how to find us. If you didn't, you wouldn't be listening to this episode. If you enjoyed anything that Max had to say, please help us blow this podcast up. Stories like Max's will inspire people who are maybe having the thought of, should I start my own business? Should I join the military? People who are in the middle of a situation where they don't have a lot of money. They're living in a poverty type of life. They might hear this episode and it might push them over the edge to light that fire and that motivation to be a better version of themselves and to start their own business. I really believe in the power of the stories that people like you are telling. So do me 3 favors that are going to take under a minute of your time and 0 cents of your money. Go to YouTube and subscribe. Go to Spotify and leave a 5-star review, and then go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, and you can leave a review that's as short as 1 word or 2 words, and just say, great job, hit that 5 stars, and submit it. And please help us spread the stories that people like Max are saying. Max, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it having you here this afternoon.
Me too. You're doing great work, and thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, everyone. Have a great Saturday night. We'll see you next week for another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. See you later.